Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the orbital defense station above Earth. The coffee in his mug had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. His eyes were fixed on the main screen showing the empty space around their planet. Everything looked normal, but Jake knew that was about to change. The communication officer, Lieutenant Sam Davis, suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from outside our solar system." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. After decades of listening to the stars, this was the moment humanity had both hoped for and feared. Put it through to the main screen. The image that appeared made everyone in the command center go silent. A tall, blue-skinned creature with 4 arms and glowing yellow eyes stared at them from what was clearly an alien ship. The being wore elaborate golden armor and had an expression of complete arrogance on its face. Primitive humans of the third planet, the alien spoke in perfect English, though his voice carried a mechanical tone that suggested translation technology. "I am Admiral Vexstar of the Zephyrian Empire. We have observed your pathetic civilization. For several of your months, your weapons are crude, your technology is laughable, and your species is weak." Jake exchanged glances with his crew. Everyone remained perfectly calm, just as they had been trained. Lieutenant Amy Carter, their intelligence officer, was already recording everything and taking notes. Admiral Vexstar continued his speech. "However, the Zephyrian Empire is generous to inferior species. We offer you a choice that we do not usually. Give 2 primitive worlds. You have exactly 72 of your Earth hours to surrender completely. You will abandon all weapons, submit to our rule, and accept your new role as a labor colony." The alien leaned forward, his forearms spreading wide. "If you agree to these terms, we will allow most of your population to live. You will work in our mines and factories across the galaxy. Your children will serve our empire faithfully. This is a generous offer that we give to very few species." Jake watched as several of his crew members struggled not to laugh. Aliens had no idea what they were really dealing with. "If you refuse our generous offer," Vexstar said, his voice turning cold, "we will demonstrate why the Zephyrian Empire rules over 43 star systems. We will turn your cities to ash. We will boil your oceans. We will crack your planets, crust, and leave nothing but a dead rock floating in space." The screen showed images of destroyed worlds, burned cities, empty landscapes, and the remains of civilizations that had tried to resist. Jake had to admit the aliens were good at psychological warfare. These images would have terrified most species. "You have seen what happens to those who dare resist us," Vexstar said. "Your primitive rockets and chemical weapons cannot stand against our plasma cannons and energy shields. Your metal ships will melt like ice in a fire. Your soldiers will die before they can even see our warriors." The alien admiral stood up from his throne-like chair. "We will return in 72 hours for your answer. Choose wisely, humans. It's the only mercy you will receive from the Zephyrian Empire." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in complete silence for several long seconds. Then Lieutenant Davis started laughing. "Primitive rockets and chemical weapons? Did he actually say that?" 43 star systems, Amy Carter said, shaking her head. "They think that's impressive." Jake stood up and walked to the communication console. "Amy, send an immediate report to President Rodriguez and the Global Defense Council. Tell them the Zephyrians have made their move." "Already on it, Captain," Amy replied, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "Should I include the part where they called us pathetic?" "Include everything," Jake said. "Every word, every threat, every assumption they made about our capabilities." Lieutenant Davis raised her hand. "Captain, should we respond to their transmission?" Jake thought for a moment. "Not yet. Let them wait. They gave us 72 hours, so we'll use every minute of it." Over the next few hours, Jake watched as Earth's real defense preparations began. What the Zephyrians had seen during their months of observation was exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Old-style rockets, simple military bases, and basic weapons that belonged in museums. What they hadn't seen were the underground, facilities built into mountains and ocean floors. They hadn't detected the quantum communication networks that connected every major city on Earth and beyond. They had no idea about the orbital weapons platforms disguised as old satellites, or the fusion reactors hidden beneath major cities. Amy Carter brought Jake a full report on the Zephyrian Empire. According to our analysis, they use standard conquest tactics. They rely on superior technology to intimidate primitive species into surrender. When that doesn't work, they use overwhelming force to destroy any resistance quickly. What about their actual military capabilities? Jake asked. Impressive, but predictable, Amy replied. Plasma weapons, energy shields, faster than light travel, and standard infantry tactics. They've never faced an enemy that was prepared for them. Jake nodded. And they've never faced humans. President Elena Rodriguez appeared on the secure communication channel from the White House. Captain Morrison, I've reviewed the alien transmission. The Global Defense Council has voted unanimously. We're activating all defense protocols immediately. Understood, Madam President, Jake replied. How do you want to respond to their ultimatum? The president smiled. I think we should keep it simple. Send them a message that even they can understand. Jake understood immediately. Yes, ma'am. I'll send the response personally. 36 hours after the Zephyrian ultimatum, Jake sat in front of a camera in the command center. The message would be broadcast to Admiral Vexstar and his entire fleet, which was now gathering at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Vexstar, Jake began, looking directly into the camera. We have received your ultimatum and your threats. We have seen the images of the worlds you have destroyed and the species you have enslaved. Jake paused, letting his words sink in. We have considered your generous offer of slavery and death. We have discussed your promises of destruction and conquest. The captain stood up, his expression completely calm. Our answer is simple. We refuse your offer. We reject your threats. We will not surrender our world, our freedom, or our future to you or anyone else. Jake smiled, and there was something in that smile that would have worried the aliens if they had understood humans better. You claim to rule 43 star systems. You boast about your superior technology and your powerful weapons. You call us primitive and weak. But you made one critical mistake, Admiral Vexstar. You assumed that what you could see was all there was to see. You thought that primitive rockets and simple weapons were all we possessed. You believed that a species capable of surviving ice ages, world wars, and nuclear weapons would simply give up when faced with threats. Jake walked closer to the camera. You wanted our answer in 72 hours? Here it is. In words that even your empire can understand. The captain looked directly into the camera, his voice carrying the weight of 10 billion humans behind. Come and take it. The transmission ended, and Jake turned to his crew. All stations, prepare for battle. Signal all defense platforms to begin final preparations. Contact the lunar bases and tell them to bring their weapons online. Lieutenant Davis looked up from her console. Captain. Long-range sensors are showing the Zephyrian fleet moving toward Earth. Estimated arrival time is 18 hours, Jake. Nodded and sat back down in his command chair. Then we have 18 hours to show them exactly how wrong they were about humanity. Amy Carter was already coordinating with defense installations around the world. All hidden facilities are reporting. Ready status? Orbital platforms are armed and waiting. Ground forces are in position. Jake looked out at the stars where the alien fleet was approaching. For months, the Zephyrians had watched Earth and seen exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Now they were about to discover what happened when you underestimated the species that had climbed to the top of the food chain on one of the galaxy's most dangerous planets. Let's teach them about human hospitality, Jake said quietly. Commander Kyle Bennett stood on the bridge of the defense station Aurora, watching the darkness of space through the main viewing window. 18 hours had passed since Captain Morrison sent humanity's answer to the aliens. Now, it was time to see if Earth's preparations would be enough. Commander, sensors are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system, reported Sergeant Lisa Park from her console. Whatever's coming, it's big. Kyle nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is Commander Bennett. Battle stations. This is not a drill. The alien fleet has arrived. Across Earth's orbital defenses. Similar announcements echoed through dozens of hidden stations. For months, these facilities had pretended to be simple research platforms or old communication satellites. The Zephyrians had dismissed them as harmless junk floating in space. On the surface of Earth, Marine Colonel Dan Cooper was leading his troops through final equipment checks in an underground bunker beneath New York City. His soldiers wore what looked like standard military gear, but hidden beneath their normal uniforms were powered armor suits that incorporated technology reverse-engineered from alien artifacts recovered over the past decade. "Listen up, Marines," Dan said to his assembled troops. "Intelligence reports suggest the aliens will try to land ground forces in major cities. They expect to find scared humans with simple weapons hiding in buildings." Private Joe Martin raised his hand. "What are they actually going to find, sir?" Don smiled grimly. "They're going to find out why humans are the apex predator on a planet where everything tries to kill everything else." In space above Earth, the Zephyrian fleet began to cloak. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conquest of Stars, watching Earth grow larger on his main screen. Behind his ship, 300 vessels of the Zephyrian First Fleet moved into attack formation. "Communications officer, broadcast our victory message to the human population," Vextar ordered. "Let them see what resistance has brought them." The message went out across all human communication channels. Vextar appeared on television screens, computer monitors, and mobile devices around the world. "Foolish humans, you have chosen death over slavery. Watch now as your primitive world burns." But something was wrong. Instead of panic and chaos, the alien admiral saw something he didn't expect. Humans everywhere were calmly moving to predetermined positions. Children were being led to safe areas by adults who showed no fear. Military personnel were taking positions with confidence rather than desperation. On the Aurora, Kaya watched the alien fleets approach with careful attention. "Lisa, are you getting readings on their weapons and shield systems?" "Yes, sir," Lisa replied. "Just like our intelligence predicted. Plasma-based weapons, energy shields designed to deflect directed energy attacks, and standard electromagnetic pulse weapons for disabling planetary defenses." Kyle activated his communication link to Earth Defense Command. "This is Aurora to Control. Enemy fleet is in position and showing expected weapon signatures. Requesting permission to begin operation." "Welcome, Matt." The voice of General Patricia White came through the speakers. "Permission granted, Aurora. Show them what they missed during their surveillance." Kyle turned to his weapons officer. "Rick, bring the kinetic platforms online. Target the lead ship." Lieutenant Rick Adams worked at his console, activating weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Hidden throughout Earth's orbital space, dozens of platforms that looked like old satellites suddenly came to life. Each platform contained tungsten rods the size of telephone poles, ready to be launched at incredible speeds. Admiral Vextar was giving orders to begin the standard invasion protocol. When his tactical officers suddenly looked up in alarm, "Admiral, we're detecting energy spikes from multiple positions around the planet. The humans appear to have hidden weapons platforms." "Impossible," Vextar said. "Our surveillance showed only primitive technology, kinda energy readings." "Are you detecting, sir? These aren't energy weapons. They appear to be kinetic projectiles. Moving it, Admiral, these readings can't be correct. Nothing should be able to accelerate solid matter to these velocities." The first tungsten rod struck the Conquest of Stars at 20% of light speed. The Zephyrian energy shields, designed to deflect plasma bolts and laser beams, offered no protection against simple metal moving at relativistic speeds. The rod punched through the alien ship's hull like it was made of paper. On the Aurora, Kyle watched as explosions bloomed across the alien fleet. "Lisa, status report on the enemy." "Ships. Direct hits on 12 vessels, sir. Their shields are completely ineffective against kinetic attacks. It looks like they never considered that someone might use simple projectiles at these speeds." Admiral Vextar struggled to maintain his footing as his flagship shook from multiple impacts. "Damage report. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15, sir. We've lost main power to the forward sections. How are they accelerating simple metal to these velocities?" The Admiral had no answer. In all their conquests, the Zephyrians had never encountered a species that used kinetic weapons at relativistic speeds. Their shields and armor were designed to handle energy attacks, not chunks of metal moving at significant fractions of light. "Speed. Begin landing operations immediately," Vexter ordered. Get our ground forces to the surface before they can target our troop transports. In the underground facility beneath New York, Colonel Dan Cooper received the alert that alien landing craft were approaching the city. All squads, enemy dropships inbound. Remember your training and stick to the plan. The first Zephyrian landing craft touched down in Central Park. Blue-skinned soldiers in advanced armor poured out, carrying plasma rifles and energy weapons. They expected to face humans with simple guns and basic military equipment. Instead, they found empty streets and no signs of resistance. The aliens moved cautiously through the city, confused by the lack of opposition. Their sensors showed human life signs throughout the area, but no one was visible. Private Joe Martin watched the aliens through his scope from a building 6 blocks away. His rifle looked like a standard military weapon, but it fired rounds made from recovered alien materials at velocities that could penetrate Zephyrian armor. Contact. 300 meters, Joe whispered into his communication device. Act. 12 enemy soldiers moving east on 5th Avenue. Act. Around the city. Similar reports came in from hidden human positions. The aliens were walking into a carefully prepared trap. Colonel Dan gave the order, all units, weapons free. Let's show them how humans fight on their home ground. The first alien soldier to die never saw the shot that killed him. Joe's bullet, fired from 6 blocks away, punched through the Zephyrian's helmet and dropped him instantly. Similar shots rang out across the city as human snipers engaged targets from concealed positions. The alien squad leader tried to coordinate his troops, but his communication system was being jammed by human electronic warfare specialists. His energy weapons, designed to fight other aliens with similar technology, were less effective against humans who used cover, concealment, and tactics the Zephyrians had never encountered. From a rooftop position, Dan Cooper watched through binoculars. As his Marines engaged the enemy, these aliens fight like they've never faced guerrilla warfare, he observed. They move in formation, use predictable tactics, and expect their enemies to fight the same way they do. Sergeant Karen Phillips, leading a squad through the subway. Tonnels reported her position. Colonel, we've flanked the enemy position in Times Square. They have no idea we're using the underground to move around them. Execute the ambush, Sergeant, Dan replied. Show them what urban warfare really means. In space, Admiral Vextar was receiving increasingly desperate reports from his ground forces. Sir, our troops are taking heavy casualties. The humans are using tactics we've never encountered. They refuse to engage in direct combat and are attacking from concealed positions. How many humans are we facing? Vextar demanded. Unknown, sir. They appear and disappear like ghosts. Our energy weapons are effective, but we can't hit targets we can't see. Back on the Aurora, Kyle was coordinating the space battle while monitoring the ground combat. Lisa, what's the status of the alien fleet? 47 ships destroyed or heavily damaged, sir. They're trying to withdraw to a safer distance, but our kinetic platforms can reach them anywhere in the system. Kyle smiled as he watched another. Tungsten rod, strike an alien cruiser. Signal Earth Defense Command. Tell them Phase 1 is complete. The aliens know they underestimated us, but they haven't seen anything yet. Dr. Susan Clark, working in a secret laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, was putting finishing touches on humanity's next surprise for the Zephyrians. She had spent years studying alien technology, recovered from crashed probes and intercepted communications. Commander Bennett, Susan's voice came through Kyle's communication system. The quantum disruption field is ready for testing. If it works as designed, it should disable their faster-than-light drives. Kyle understood immediately. If the aliens couldn't retreat to their home systems, they would be trapped in Earth's solar system. Dr. Clark, you are authorized to activate the quantum field. Across the alien fleet, Zephyrian engineers suddenly found their ships unable to enter faster-than-light travel. Fleet Admiral Rexton stood in the command center of his massive warship, the Eternal Dominion, studying the reports from Admiral Vextar's failed invasion. Around him, the Zephyrian Second Armada stretched across space like a metal storm cloud. 500 ships, the Empire's most elite force, had been assembled to crush what should have been a simple primitive world. How many ships did Vextar lose? Rexton asked his intelligence officer. Commander Zekdar checked his datapad with trembling hands. 212 vessels destroyed or disabled, sir. Only 88 ships escaped the human system, and most of those are heavily damaged. Rexton felt his forearms clench into fists. In 300 years of conquest, the Zephyrion Empire had never lost more than a dozen ships taking any world. The humans had destroyed an entire fleet in less than 2 days. What weapons did they use? Rexton demanded. Kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds, sir. Simple metal rods accelerated to 20% of light speed. Our shields were completely useless against them. Rexton studied the tactical data from the battle. The humans had used technology the Zephyrians understood, but in ways they had never considered. Accelerating solid matter to such velocities required enormous amounts of energy. Energy that should have been easily detected by their surveillance. Sir, another officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the human system. On Earth, Commander Kate Sullivan sat in the newly constructed Strategic Command Center buried 3 miles beneath the Colorado Mountains. Around her, dozens of officers coordinated humanity's next move. The successful defense of Earth had been just the beginning. Admiral Rexton, Kate said, looking directly into the camera. I am Commander Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. We know you're out there with your second fleet. You're probably wondering how your first invasion went so badly wrong. Kate stood up and walked closer to the camera. Let me save you some time. You lost because you made the same mistake your admiral made. You assumed that what you could see was all there was to see. You thought you were hunting prey, but you were actually walking into a trap set by predators. The human commander smiled, and there was something in that expression that would have worried the aliens if they had understood human psychology better. But here's something your intelligence probably didn't tell you. Humans don't just defend. When someone attacks our home, we attack back. Rexton watched the transmission with growing unease. This human spoke with the confidence of someone who held superior position, not someone facing overwhelming odds. You have 12 hours to withdraw your fleet from our space and return to your own territory, Kate continued. If you choose to attack Earth, you will discover that our hospitality gets much more interesting for repeat visitors. The transmission ended, leaving Rexton staring at a blank screen. 12 hours? They're giving us an ultimatum? Is tactical? Officer approached hesitantly. Sir, perhaps we should consider their offer. The First Fleet's defeat suggests these humans are more dangerous than our intelligence indicated. Rexton's yellow eyes blazed with fury. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We do not retreat from primitive worlds. Prepare the fleet for immediate attack. But while Rexton was planning his assault on Earth, humanity was already implementing the next phase of their strategy. Captain Ron Hayes stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Independence, humanity's first interstellar warship. To any observer, it looked like a captured and modified Zephyrian cruiser, but appearances were deceiving. Navigation set course for the Kepler system, Ron ordered. It's time to show the Zephyrians what happens when you attack Earth. The Independence had been built using captured alien technology, but every system had been improved by human engineering. The faster-than-light drive was 30% more efficient than the original Zephyrian design. The weapon systems incorporated human innovations that made them more powerful and accurate. The ship's armor used materials that didn't exist. In Zephyrian space, Lieutenant Ben Foster, the ship's tactical officer, was monitoring long-range sensors. Captain, we're approaching the Kepler system. Intelligence reports indicate this is a major Zephyrian supply depot. Perfect, Ron replied. Time to cut their supply lines. Bring us out of FTL at the edge of the system. The Independence dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately began scanning the Kepler system. What they found exceeded their expectations. Dozens of supply ships were moving between planets, carrying resources and weapons to support the war effort. Target the largest supply convoy. Let's send a message that will reach every corner of their empire. The human warship struck like a ghost. Using improved stealth technology, the Independence attacked 3 supply convoys before the Zephyrian defenders even knew they were under attack. The alien patrol ships that tried to respond found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by technology. They thought they understood, but had never seen used so effectively. Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory on Earth, Dr. Steve Parker was making a discovery that would change the course of the war. He had been studying captured Zephyrian soldiers, trying to understand their biology and physiology. "Commander Sullivan," Steve's voice came through Kate's communication system. "I've found something important about Zephyrian biology. They have a critical weakness we can exploit." Kate immediately connected to the laboratory's secure channel. "What did you find, Doctor?" "The Zephyrians evolved on a world with very specific atmospheric conditions," Steve explained. "Their respiratory system is highly efficient, but also highly specialized. If we can introduce certain compounds into their air supply, we can disable them without permanent harm." Kate understood the implications immediately. "How quickly can we weaponize this discovery?" "Give me 48 hours and I can have dispersal systems ready for deployment. I can disable entire ships without destroying them." While Dr. Parker worked on his biological weapons, other human teams were spreading across Severian space. Captain Linda Gray commanded a stealth ship that was intercepting Zephyrian communications. What she discovered was almost as valuable as any military victory. "Command, this is Gray," Linda reported from her position near a major Zephyrian communication relay. "I'm intercepting massive amounts of data about their empire structure. It's not what we expected." Kate's voice came through the secure channel. "Explain, Captain." "The Zephyrian Empire controls thousands of worlds, but most of those worlds are populated by other species. The actual Zephyrians are a small ruling class that keeps their subjects technologically dependent. If we can get information to these enslaved species, we might be able to start rebellions throughout their empire." Kate smiled as she realized the opportunity. Captain Gray began broadcasting technical specifications for basic weapons and communication systems to every enslaved world you can reach. "Let's see how the Zephyrians handle fighting wars on multiple fronts." Back with the Second Armada, Admiral Rexton was receiving increasingly disturbing reports. His supply lines were being attacked by human ships that appeared and disappeared, like ghosts. Communication relays throughout the Empire were broadcasting seditious information to enslaved worlds. Most disturbing of all, several subject species had already begun open rebellions. "Sir," Commander Zekdar reported, "we're receiving distress calls from the Antari system. The vegan species has declared independence and is attacking our garrison forces." "From the Rigel system," another officer added. "The Centaurians have seized control of the orbital weapons platforms." Rexton stared at the tactical display, showing his crumbling empire. "How are they coordinating these rebellions?" "Unknown, sir. The humans appear to be providing technical assistance and communication support to every species that declares independence." Earth Kate Sullivan was coordinating the largest intelligence operation in human history. Teams of specialists were working around the clock to support liberation movements across the galaxy. "Status report on Operation Freedom," Kate requested Major Paul Wright. Her intelligence chief consulted his data screens. 47 worlds have declared independence in the past week. Zephyrians are having to divert significant military resources to put down rebellions instead of focusing on Earth. "What about our offensive operations?" Captain Hayes reports. "Successful strikes on 12 supply convoys. Independence has destroyed or captured enough resources to supply a small fleet." Captain Gray's information warfare campaign is exceeding all expectations, Kate nodded with satisfaction. "And Dr. Parker's biological weapons? Ready for deployment, Commander?" "We can disable Zephyrian crews without killing them, which should make it easier to capture their ships intact." Rexton was facing the collapse of everything he had spent his career building. The Second Armada, supposed to be the Empire's ultimate weapon, was being recalled piecemeal to deal with rebellions across Zephyrian space. Sir Zektor reported, "High Command is ordering us to abandon the attack on Earth and return to the core systems. Rebellions are spreading faster than we can contain them." Rexton felt his career ending in disgrace. How is this possible? We're fighting one primitive world, not a galactic alliance. But that was exactly the mistake the Zephyrians kept making. They weren't fighting one world. 6 months after the first Zephyrian attack on Earth, General Nick Foster stood in the command center of the newly built space station Unity. orbiting Mars. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see the construction yards were human, and alien engineers worked side by side, building ships for the Free Species Coalition. "General, we're receiving reports from all sectors," reported Colonel Mary Adams, his chief of staff. "The Centaurian fleet has secured the Vega system. The Andromedan rebels have taken control of 3 mining worlds. The coalition is growing. Stronger every day." Nick nodded as he studied the holographic map showing the current state of the galaxy. Green lights marked systems controlled by the Free Species Coalition. Red lights showed remaining Zephyrian strongholds. The red lights were becoming fewer each week. "What's the status of our new allies?" Nick asked. "Better than expected, sir," Mary replied. "The Centaurians are excellent engineers. They've improved our ship designs by 15%. The Andromedans are natural fighters who understand guerrilla tactics almost as well as humans do. The vegans are providing medical support that's saving lives across the coalition." The coalition had grown from humanity's initial information broadcasts to enslaved species. What started as simple technical assistance had become a full military alliance of 43 liberated worlds, all working together to end Zephyrian rule on Mars. Commander Beth Adams was overseeing the testing of humanity's newest defensive innovation. The Red Planet had become humanity's second major stronghold. But intelligence reports suggested the Zephyrians were planning a desperate attack using planet-killer weapons. "Dr. White, are the planetary shields ready for testing?" Through her communication device, Dr. Carol White's voice came from the underground laboratory complex. "The fusion reactors are online, and the shield generators are positioned. If this works, we'll be able to protect entire planets from any weapon the Zephyrians have." Beth watched through telescopes as the massive test began. Energy fields invisible to the naked eye surrounded Mars like a protective bubble. When the test projectiles struck the shield, they simply disappeared in bursts of harmless light. "Incredible," Beth whispered. "Carol, how much energy does this system require?" "Less than you might expect," Carol replied. "We're using the planet's magnetic field to amplify the effect. The fusion reactors just provide the initial power. It's actually more efficient than ship-based shields." Meanwhile, Captain Tim Ross was conducting intelligence operations deep in Zephyrian space. His stealth ship, the Shadow Walker, had spent weeks gathering information about the enemy's remaining strongholds. "Command, this is Ross," Tim reported from his hidden position near the Zephyrian capital system. "I've got good news and bad news about the enemy leadership." General Foster's voice came through the secure channel. "Go ahead, Captain." "The good news is that their empire is even more unstable than we thought. The ruling class controls only about 50 worlds directly. Everything else was dependent on fear and intimidation, which obviously isn't working anymore. And the bad news? They're planning something desperate. I'm intercepting communications about a final assault on Earth using every planet killer weapon they have left. They'd rather destroy Earth than admit defeat." Nick felt his blood run cold. The Zephyrians were planning to do what humans called a scorched Earth retreat. If they couldn't rule the galaxy, they would try to destroy anyone who opposed them. "Tim, how long do we have?"
Pass.
"Based on their fleet movements, maybe 2 weeks before they can coordinate a final attack." "Sir, they're talking about using weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Even our new shields might not be enough." Nick immediately opened communication channels to all Coalition forces. "This is General Foster to all Free Species Coalition commanders. The enemy is planning a final, desperate attack on Earth. All available ships are to return to the Sol system immediately." Dr. Carol White was working frantically in her laboratory, trying to improve the planetary shield systems. "We need more power," she muttered to herself while running calculations. "The planet-killer weapons use focused gravitational fields. Our shields can stop energy attacks, but gravity is harder to deflect." Her assistant, Dr. Mark Johnson, looked up from his own calculations. "Carol, what if we don't try to stop the gravitational weapons? What if we redirect them?" Carol paused in her work. "Redirect them how?" "The Zephyrians are using artificial gravity generators to create the planet killer effect. If we can create our own gravity fields at the right frequency, we might be able to make their weapons tear apart their own ships instead of our planet." Carol's eyes widened as she understood the implications. Mark, you're talking about turning their most powerful weapons against them. Can we generate enough gravitational force? Maybe if we link all the fusion reactors on Earth, Mars, and the Moon together. Would require perfect timing, but it's theoretically possible. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Vextar was preparing for what he knew would be his final battle. The once mighty Zephyrian Empire had been reduced to a few dozen ships and a handful of loyal worlds. Most of their subject species had joined the human coalition, and those that remained neutral were too afraid to help either side. Status report on the planet killer fleet, Vextar demanded from his temporary flagship. 12 vessels equipped with gravitational weapons, sir, his tactical officer reported. If we can penetrate the Earth system's defenses, we can destroy their homeworld completely. Vextar stared at the tactical display. And if we fail, then the Zephyrian Empire ends, sir. These are our last ships and our most powerful weapons. Alien Admiral understood that this attack was more about revenge than military strategy. The humans had not just defeated the Zephyrian Empire. They had shown every species in the galaxy that the mighty Zephyrians could be beaten. That humiliation could only be answered with the complete destruction of Earth. Captain Ron Hayes was leading a patrol near the edge of the solar system when his sensors detected the approaching Zephyrian fleet. All ships, this is Hayes. Enemy. Fleet detected bearing 27 Mark IV. Count shows 12 capital ships equipped with planet-killer weapons. The message was immediately relayed to General Foster on Unity Station. Understood, Captain Hayes. Fall back to the Mars defense line and prepare for the final battle. Nick opened communication channels to every ship in the system. All vessels, this is General Foster. The enemy is approaching with their most powerful weapons. Everything we've fought for over the past 6 months comes down to the next few hours. On Earth, Dr. Carol White was making final preparations for the gravitational deflection system. Mark, are all the fusion reactors synchronized? Earth, Mars, and Luna are all connected and ready, Mark replied. The quantum communication system will allow us to coordinate the gravity fields in real time. Good. If this works, the Zephyrians are about to learn that their own weapons can be turned against them. If it doesn't work, Carol didn't finish the sentence. The Zephyrian fleet approached. Earth like an arrow aimed at the heart of the Free Species Coalition. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger on his screens. Begin charging the gravitational weapons. Target the planet's core. As the alien ships prepared to fire their planet killers, Dr. White activated her gravitational deflection system. Across 3 worlds. Fusion reactors pumped enormous amounts of energy into gravity generators that created fields of warped spacetime. Firing planet killers now, Zephyrian weapons officer reported. The gravitational weapons activated, sending invisible waves of destructive force toward Earth. But instead of striking the planet, the waves encountered Carol's deflection fields and were bent back toward their source. Admiral, something's wrong, the tactical officer shouted. Our weapons are reflecting back at us. Vextar watched in horror as his own planet-killer weapons tore through his fleet. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles were torn apart by the very weapons they had just fired. On Unity Station, Nick watched the enemy fleet destroy itself. Carol, your deflection system worked perfectly. Zephyrians just eliminated their own fleet. Dr. White's voice came through the communication system, tired but triumphant. The gravitational fields created a perfect mirror effect. Their weapons had nowhere to go but back to the source. As the last Zephyrian ship was destroyed by its own weapons, Captain Tim Ross emerged from hiding near the enemy capital system. General Foster, this is Ross. The Zephyrian capital is defenseless. Their home fleet was completely committed to the Earth attack. Nick realized that humanity had been given an unexpected opportunity. Tim maintained surveillance on the capital system. All coalition forces prepare for the final assault on the Zephyrian homeworlds. Admiral Vextar, floating in an escape pod among the wreckage of his fleet, sent a final transmission toward the Zephyrian capital. This is Admiral Vextar, to High Command. The Earth attack has failed. Our fleet is destroyed. The humans have weapons we never imagined possible. The response from the Zephyrian capital was immediate. "Admiral, you are ordered to return home." Immediately, the High Council is prepared to discuss surrender terms. Vexstar looked out at the wreckage of his once mighty fleet, destroyed by their own weapons. There may not be time for surrender. 1 year after the first Zephyrian attack on Earth, Fleet Admiral Sam Turner stood on the bridge of the human flagship Unity, watching the final ceremony that would change the galaxy forever. Through the viewing windows, he could see representatives from over 200 species gathering for the signing of the Galactic Freedom Accords. "Admiral, all delegations have arrived," reported Captain Lisa Park, who had been promoted after her service during the defense of Earth. "The Zephyrian representatives are requesting permission to board." Sam nodded. "Grant them permission. Today's about ending the war, not continuing old hatreds." The ceremony was taking place in neutral space, halfway between Earth and the former Zephyrian capital. The Unity had been chosen as the meeting place because it represented humanity's vision for the future. A ship built with technology from dozens of different species. Crewed by volunteers from across the galaxy, Admiral Vexstar, now wearing simple clothes instead of his elaborate armor, walked slowly into the main conference hall. Behind him came the surviving members of the Zephyrian High Council, looking like shadows of their former selves. The empire that had once ruled thousands of worlds was now represented by fewer than 50 individuals. President Elena Rodriguez, who had flown out from Earth for the ceremony, stood at the central podium. "Today we gather not as conquerors and conquered, but as species united in our desire for freedom and peace." Sam watched as representatives from the Free Species Coalition took their seats. Centaurians, Andromedans, vegans, and dozens of other species who had thrown off Zephyrian rule were here to witness the birth of a new galactic government. Dr. Julia Brooks, now serving as Earth's Minister of Reconstruction, approached the podium to read the terms of the Accords. "The Democratic Alliance of Free Worlds is founded on the principle that no species has the right to dominate another. All member worlds will have equal representation in the Galactic Council, regardless of their size or technological level." Vexstar listened to the terms with growing amazement. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered victors who offered equality rather than demanding submission. The humans could have easily established their own empire, but instead, they were creating a system where even former enemies would have a voice. "Furthermore," Julia continued, "all species found guilty of war crimes will be tried in courts staffed by representatives from multiple worlds. Justice will be administered fairly, with the goal of rehabilitation rather than revenge." Jake Morrison, the officer who had first received the Zephyrian ultimatum, now served as head of the new galactic peacekeeping force. He stood up to address the assembly. "The peacekeeping force will be composed of volunteers from all member species. Our mission is to protect freedom, not to impose the will of any single world or government." As Jake spoke, Sam reflected on how much had changed in just 1 year. The species that the Zephyrians had dismissed as primitive had not only defeated their empire, but had also shown the galaxy a completely different way of organizing interstellar civilization. Commander Kate Sullivan, now serving as the first director of the Galactic Intelligence Service, presented the security arrangements for the new alliance. "Information will be shared freely among all member worlds. No species will be kept in technological dependency. We believe that knowledge belongs to everyone." This announcement caused a stir among the former Zephyrian subjects. For centuries, they had been denied access to advanced technology to keep them dependent on their rulers. The idea that they would now have access to the most advanced science in the galaxy was almost impossible to believe. Dr. Carol White, who had developed the gravitational deflection system that ended the war, stood to address the scientific cooperation aspects of the Accords. "All member worlds will contribute to joint research projects. We will share discoveries freely and work together to solve problems that affect multiple species." Vexstar raised one of his 4 hands to request permission to speak. Sam nodded, curious to hear what the former enemy admiral had to say. "Human leaders," Vexstar began, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance, "I must ask a question. That troubles many of my people. Why are you treating us as equals when we came to your world as conquerors? Why offer us membership in your alliance when we tried to enslave you?" President Rodriguez answered personally. Admiral Vextar, we learned long ago that cycles of revenge only create more suffering. We're not interested in ruling over others or punishing entire species for the actions of their leaders. We want to build something better. Sam watched as many of the alien delegates nodded in agreement. The humans had proven that strength could be used to protect rather than to dominate, and that victory could lead to justice rather than oppression. The formal signing ceremony began with each species placing their mark on the Galactic Freedom Accords. When it came time for the Zephyrian delegation, Vextar hesitated for a moment before signing. With this signature, Vextar said, the Zephyrian Empire formally ends. We accept membership in the Democratic Alliance and pledge to work for the freedom of all species. As the ceremony concluded, Sam received a message from Earth about the war crimes trials that had been taking place over the past months. Admiral, the courts have completed their work. Most Zephyrian officials are being sentenced to community service, helping rebuild the worlds they damaged. Only the worst cases are receiving prison time. Sam nodded with satisfaction. The trials had been fair and thorough, with former enemies serving as both prosecutors and judges. Justice was being done. But without the vengeful excess that had characterized so many conflicts throughout galactic history, Dr. Julia Brooks was already coordinating the massive reconstruction effort that would rebuild thousands of damaged worlds. We have engineering teams from 47 different species working together. The Centaurians are designing new cities. The Andromedans are clearing debris from space battles, and the Vegans are providing medical care to refugees. Meanwhile, Captain Ron Hayes was leading exploration missions to the edge of the galaxy, using improved faster-than-light technology developed through cooperation between human and alien scientists. Admiral Turner, we're discovering new species every week. The galaxy is much larger and more diverse than anyone realized. Sam understood the implications. The Zephyrian Empire had controlled only a small portion of the galaxy, but they had prevented exploration and contact with countless other civilizations. Now that freedom of movement was restored, the true scope of galactic diversity was being revealed on Earth. Children from dozens of different species were attending integrated schools, learning about each other's cultures and histories. What had once been impossible was now routine. Former enemies working together, sharing knowledge, and building friendships across species lines. Commander Beth Adams, now in charge of planetary defense systems, reported that the gravitational shield technology was being shared with all member worlds. Every planet in the Alliance now has protection against planet-killer weapons. No species will ever again face extinction from military attack. Sam received regular reports about the progress of democracy throughout the Alliance. Former dictatorships were holding their first free elections. Species that had never been allowed to govern themselves were learning about representative government and individual rights. Admiral Captain Park reported, we're receiving a priority transmission from the deep space monitoring stations. Sam immediately connected to the communication system. This is Admiral Turner. The voice of Dr. Mark Johnson came through the speakers. Admiral, we've detected artificial signals coming from beyond our galaxy. The transmissions appear to be distress calls, but they're using technology we don't recognize. Sam felt a chill run down his spine. Doctor, are you saying there are other civilizations outside our galaxy? Yes, sir. And based on the signal patterns, they appear to be fleeing from something. The transmissions suggest they're refugees from some kind of conflict. President Rodriguez, who was still aboard the Unity, joined the conversation. Admiral, what are the implications? Sam studied the data that was coming in from the monitoring stations. Madam President, it's possible that the Zephyrian Empire was itself running from something. Their expansion might not have been pure conquest, but an attempt to build defenses against a greater threat. Kate Sullivan, monitoring the intelligence implications, added her analysis. If that's true, then our victory over the Zephyrians might have attracted attention from whatever they were afraid of. Dr. White joined the discussion from her laboratory on Earth. The good news is that we now have an alliance of hundreds of species working together. Whatever is out there, we'll face it united rather than divided. Sam looked out at the stars beyond the viewing windows, knowing that humanity's greatest test might still be ahead. But he also knew that the galaxy was now united in a way it had never been before. All department heads, Sam announced, begin preparations for potential contact with extragalactic civilizations. If there are refugees out there, we'll help them. If there are threats out there, we'll face them together. Captain Morrison, now thinking like the peacekeeping commander he had become, added his perspective. Admiral, whatever comes next, we've proven that cooperation is stronger than conquest.